Okay. Anyone want to bring with a question before we begin? Right. There were questions that if I remember, I'm not sure related to. Hang on. No. Okay. Does anybody want to ask something before we begin? No.
Rav, could I
Yeah.
just ask? I don't know if we'll maybe talk about this later, but once you're already in a kind of relationship, whether you did it through meeting someone or you did it through like a more organized shidduchim, what's a healthy way to like actually build that relationship? Like, what's a healthy way to date?
Communication. Talking. That's the best way. If you're already in a relationship, open, honest communication, be able to express yourself, to speak about yourself. She can speak about herself, feel comfortable to discuss everything and anything. That's the most important way. That's the best way to go about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Tov, Haverim. I want to read to you with you the beginning of Erich Fromm's book. Is art a love? Is love an art? Sorry. I'm going to share the screen and we read it together. Hang on. Okay, you can read. You can see it well. Ken?
Yes.
Okay, is love an art? Is love an art? Now, when he means art, he doesn't mean art. This is Erich Fromm, yes. It doesn't mean art by the word that we use art today as an artist, as Rembrandt, as Van Gogh. He means art as a profession. Is art a profession? Is it art a subject of study? Is love an art? Then, if it is, it requires knowledge and effort. Or is love a pleasant sensation, which to experience is a matter of chance, something one falls into if one is lucky? Meaning, I fell in love. The actual phrase or term, I fell in love, is a wrong term because it means it was something completely unintended. I fell in the street. I didn't mean to. I tripped over something. And it's a very bad way to relate to probably one of the most important things in our lives. So what is it? This little book is based on the former premise, meaning that it's an effort, it's an art, which undoubtedly the majority of people today believe in the latter. Now, when he says the majority of people, he's speaking about Jews and non-Jews of the Western persuasion, meaning people coming with the Western ideas that you're going to walk in the street and you're going to be lucky and you'll meet the right one, and so on and so forth. Now, it's true that people today also use apps and all sorts of things, and they try to organize it. But we have this kind of belief that it's much better that it will come completely by chance and only out of love. Not that people think that love is not important. They are starved for it. They watch endless numbers of films about happy and unhappy love stories. They listen to hundreds of trashy songs about love. Yet hardly anyone thinks that there's anything that needs to be learned about love. So now, even if I go on shidduchim, on a date, I organize it. I'm not waiting for somehow for it to happen. Even if that is the case, even if that is the case, do we learn it as a subject of study of how to be a lover? When I say lover, I mean a person who loves another person. This peculiar attitude is based on several premises which either singly or combined tend to uphold it. Most people see the problem of love primarily, primarily that of being loved, rather than that of loving, of one's capacity to love. And here he's saying a very important sentence. When you are in a relationship, usually you say that, yes, I'm in a loving relationship or I am being loved. I'm just going to close the door here. While he says what we should be speaking about as, am I able to love another person? That's what I should be focusing on, not on whether I can be loved. Hence, the problem then is how to be loved, how to be lovable. In pursuit of this aim, there are several paths. One which is especially used by men. Sorry, wait, they're mixed up. Is to be successful, to be as powerful and rich as a social margin of one's position permits. Meaning, men, like usually what makes men attractive, and until today you ask women, so they say, yes, can he support me? Or is he strong? Or what is position? So men, they try to promote themselves by dressing in a way that shows that I'm strong, that I'm successful, that I have money, and so on. Another used especially by women is to make oneself attractive by cultivating one's body, dress, etc. But today, I think that it's not only women. I think this is just as much by men in our generation today, just as much. Making oneself attractive, used both by men and women, are to develop pleasant manners, interesting conversation, to be helpful, modest, inoffensive. Many of the ways to make oneself lovable are the same way they used to make oneself successful, to win friends and influence people. As a matter of fact, what most people in our culture mean by being lovable is essentially a mixture of between being popular and having sex appeal. So that's the first notion of how can I market myself as to be someone that someone can love me. A second premise about this attitude that there's nothing to be learned about love is the assumption that the problem of love is the problem of an object, not the problem of a faculty. Now, this sentence means the following. Why am I not in a relationship? Because I have not found the person to love. And that's my main problem. Well, the main problem is not finding the person to love, but being a loving person. People think that meaning to love someone, that's simple. But that to find the right object to love or to be loved by, that is what is difficult. This attitude has several reasons rooted in the development of modern society. One reason is a great change which occurred in the 20th century with respect to the choice of a love object. In the Victorian age, as in many traditional cultures, love was mostly not a spontaneous personal experience, which then might lead to marriage. On the contrary, marriage was contracted by convention, either by the respective families or by a shadchan, a marriage broker, or without the help of such intermediaries. It was concluded on the basis of social considerations, and love was supposed to develop once the marriage has been concluded. Now, I want to relate to this a minute. So, speaking about the fact that in the Victorian age, people got married because that's what they had to do according to what was accepted socially. Now, lemaise, this very, very much reminds or is similar to how mainly in the Haredi world, boys and girls get married today. Let's say in the Dati Leumi world, usually you will either be friends for quite some time or fall in love with the person that you want to marry. That's in the Dati Leumi world. In the Haredi world, falling in love before you get married is considered a sin. Not only a sin, it's considered completely inappropriate. and that love is not in the equation. Usually they will speak about love in complete disdain. Ich's love, we don't like love. Who wants that low before you get married? After they get married, the teachers, they all change their tune. But before you get married, they say you cannot get married on the basis of love. What do you know about love? How can you get married on the basis of love? Now, this is an issue to address. We need to address that issue. Can you get married on, if you fall in love, is that a good enough reason to get married? Because there are many other considerations we spoke about in our last meetings of level of religiosity, where you're going to live, where you're going to work, how you want to look, what you want your house to look like, and so on. So just by falling in love, that's not enough. But can we do without it? In the Victorian age, they did without it. Hopefully, that the couple will fall in love afterwards. But even if not, in many cases, it was taken into consideration that the couple will not fall in love. And usually, the husband, and in many times even the wife, they for romance, whatever else they're looking for, they will have other relationships. But the marriage, they will keep the institution of marriage, and that's where they have their children. And that's how they will raise their children, because that's what you're supposed to do. What happens in the Haredi world today, that people get married out of very similar considerations, but with different, like it's a bit different. Many similar considerations. Money. Can you support your avrech that is going to learn Torah? Eida, Ashkenazi, Sfaradi. What kind of Ashkenazi, Hasid or Lithuanian or Litai? What kind of yeshiva boy or yeshiva girl or same girl, whatever she is the girl? What is she? How is she going to support the house? All these, and usually the shidduch, the chatan and the kala, the boy and the girl, they're completely out of the picture in the initial stages when the parents are doing the research. Parents do the research, and only after the parents are satisfied with what they've heard about the Chatan and Kala, but even more important, what they know about the family of the Chatan and Kala, only then will the boy and the girl meet. And how many meetings are they going to have? That depends if you Chassid, what kind of Chassid, the different minagim in different Chassiduyot, if you're Lithuanian, or if you're Sfaradi Haredi. In the religious Zionist world, it's accepted that you will go out for a few months, get to know the person that you want to marry, feel for her, or hopefully also fall in love a bit, things that we spoke about last time. And only then, on the basis of that, after you found that everything, but usually the parents are not in the picture, or they might a bit be in the picture, but they're much less a factor than anything else. And usually, if you are offered someone to go out with, you will not inquire so much about her family or her or his money status. These are considerations that usually in the Dati Leumi world they're not taken so much into consideration. So what's happening in the Haredi world today is very, very similar to what happened in the Victorian age. In the last few generations, the concept of romantic love has become almost universal in the Western world. Sorry, I need to. Okay. Where to go? 1 minute. Okay. Okay. In the United States, while considerations of conventional nature are not entirely absent, to a vast extent, people in the search of romantic love or the personal experience of love, which then should lead to marriage. This new concept of freedom in love must have greatly enhanced the importance of the object as against the importance of the function. Now, I want to say something about our romantic age. It is true that we live in a romantic age, and it's true that everybody's looking for romance and love today. Now, this includes the vast majority of 90% of the Haredi world, not only the religious world and not only the secular world. In the Haredi world, initially they don't get married while they are in love. But from the moment they get married, everybody is looking to be in love. And everybody is looking to live in a loving relationship. And this is something and our expectations are very similar in most of the Haredi world. Again, the Haredi world is very varied. In most of the Haredi world, then as in the rest of the world, we want our relations to be meaningful. We want our spouses to be our friends, to be our lovers, to be everything that we want in a partner, to spend time together and everything. This was an expectation that was not an expectation in previous generations. When a couple 100 years ago got married in Eastern Europe, they had one expectation. The man had an expectation from his wife that she can bear him children and raise them. The woman had an expectation from her husband, support me, bring me food to my table. That's all. That's enough. Not that's all. That's enough. If we will also maybe be in love, if we will also maybe have other things in life, that will be a benefit. That will be tzedakah. But that's not the essentials. When you live in a world where you do not know where your next meal is coming from, you have absolutely no idea where your next meal is coming from. So the person that can provide you with the next meal, he becomes your champion. And if you've got a daughter to marry and you don't know if you can provide for her next meal, and comes someone that he can provide for her next meal, it is completely irrelevant whether your daughter falls in love with him or not. And that is the famous scene in Fiddler on the Roof when Tuvia is about to offer his daughter, his young daughter, she's 18, 17, 19, not more than that, to a 60-year-old butcher. And why is Tuvia offering his daughter of 18 or 19 to a 60-year-old butcher? For one reason. He has money and he can provide her with a house, a roof over her head, and food aplenty. And Tuvia is feeling as a parent that his main obligation is to provide for his daughter and to make sure she'll never be hungry. And that is why he goes and offers at the pushing of his wife, at the prodding of his wife. But that's why he goes and offers the butcher and says, listen, why don't you want to marry my daughter? Which in our world today would be completely and utterly unthinkable. That someone would be happy that his 19-year-old daughter or 20-year-old daughter is marrying someone under the age of 60. And so the situation is very, very, very different. It's completely changed to what it used to be 100 years ago. If you 100 years ago could marry off your daughter to someone that can give her a meal, you've done your job as a parent and as a father. You've made it. That's what you're supposed to do. And so romantic and love, romanticism and love has very, very much come into every one of our lives today and the whole world, including very Haredi world. People are looking for meaning in relationship. And the best example that I can give you is that if you went to a bookstore 100 years ago, 80 years ago, and went to look for books about relationships, I'm talking about religious books, Jewish religious books, about relationships, about love, about what is a Jewish couple, you will not find one, not even one, 100 years ago. And there was no such profession as a kala teacher or a chatan teacher. There was no such thing. This is something completely new. And today, if you go into a bookstore, a religious bookstore, you'll find shelves upon shelves by every different writer from every different kind of religious sect, Jewish religious sect, who writes about these issues, about love and about romanticism and about couples and about Jewish sexuality and about everything. All these issues have come to light in our generation. They were not there in previous generations. Now, they were not there for the simple reason there was no demand. No one wanted it. If people were looking for such books, someone would write it. No one is looking for such books. In a halachic writing, there isn't any subject, there isn't one subject, no matter how delicate, that you cannot find in Shutim, in Sifra Halacha, in anything. So if this whole genre of writing, this whole type of writing, there's no such thing in the Jewish world 100 years ago, it means that it's something that was completely out of, people didn't need it. Either they were in love or were not in love. And if they were not in love, no one expected to be in love. Unlike today, when if you're not in love with your spouse, people are looking for a guide, telling me, how can I get in love? Just like 100 years ago, there were no books about dieting. There were books about healthy eating that which usually is related to sicknesses. But there were no books about diets. I'm fat. I want to go on a diet. I want to read about it. And there were no books about dieting for two reasons. Most people were not fat, meaning most people, 90% of the people in the world did not suffer from overeating because there was not enough food. There were fat people either because of their body make or the very top rich, the 1 or 2 or 5% of the rich leaders of society, and talk about the usually noblemen. They're in plenty food and they were obese. But besides them, the large majority of the population were not. So you couldn't find in the bookstore a book about diets. There is another reason. Another reason is that there was nothing wrong with being fat. Fat was beautiful 100 years ago. Today we consider skinny beautiful. And so we have books about how to have a diet. Our problem today with regard to food is not what to eat. Will I have my next meal? Our problems today with regard to food is what not to eat, and how can I cut down so that I will not look unfavorable. I will not look the object. We're right about here about the object. So if there's no demand for a book, there won't be a book. Okay. Closely related to this factor of another feature characteristic of contemporary culture. Please, guys, you can please stop me for questions on the way whenever you want. Our whole culture is based on the appetite for buying, on the idea of a mutually favorable exchange. Modern man's happiness consists of the thrill of looking at the shop windows and in buying all that he can afford to buy, either for cash or on installments. He or she looks at people in a similar way. For the man, an attractive girl, or for the woman, an attractive man, are the prizes they are after. Attractive usually means a nice package of qualities which are popular and sought after on the personality market. What specifically makes a person attractive depends on the fashion of the time, physically as well as mentally. Just like I said, the fashion of the time. 100 years ago, a person that was full, was fatty, was considered beautiful. Go fast forward to our age, the skinnier you are, that's what you're supposed to be. During the 20s, and drinking and smoking girl, he's talking about the 20s 100 years ago. Tough and sexy was attractive. Today, the fashion demands more domesticity and coyness. He's talking about the 50s in America. So in the 20s, women were considered attractive. If a girl was considered attractive if she was drinking and smoking. In the 50s, the trend in America was that if she's a domestic woman, she's at home and she's shy, that will be attractive. At the end of the 19th and beginning of this century, a man had to be aggressive and ambitious. Today, he has to be social and tolerant in order to be an attractive package. At any rate, the sense of falling in love develops usually only with regard to such human commodities as are within reach of one's own possibilities for exchange. I'm out for a bargain. The object should be desirable from the standpoint of its social value, and at the same time should want me, considering my overt and hidden assets and potentialities. Two persons thus fall in love when they feel they've found the best object available on the market, considering the limitations of their own exchange values. 1 minute, I want to explain something. We fall in love, beautiful in our eyes, usually is in relation to our society. And I give an example. For me, a woman wearing a wig. Okay, I'm an Israeli. I live. I didn't grow up in Chutz La'aretz. In my eyes, a woman wearing a wig is not attractive. It seems to me something false and so on. In my Dati Leumi world, a beautiful woman is either a woman that doesn't cover her head, that's any woman, or a woman that wears the tichel or something like that. What's accepted in my community. I'll give an example for my Haredi nieces. When they go out on a date, my Haredi nieces, they dress up like it's Shabbos. They went out on a date, they're dressing out, they're full of makeup, and they went to a hairdresser, and they're wearing Shabbos clothes when they go out on a date. Now, if my girl, when I met her, if she would come to me wearing Shabbos clothes in the middle of the week, I wouldn't look at her. Who wears Shabbos clothes and makeup in the middle of the week? When I was looking for a girl, I was looking for something much more natural, and much more natural. In the Haredi world, if a girl would not dress up when she goes to a date, she would not be considered attractive. So what is considered attractive is in relation to the society that I live in. And this is also in regard to people of other looks. But sometimes we look for the opposite. It's known that in Scandinavia, the women want dark-haired, dark-skinned men, and the opposite. The men want dark-skinned women. So sometimes we're looking for the opposite. We're not looking for what's our society. We look for something that's exotic in relation to our society. So he's talking about that in many cases, we look at the asset that I'm trying to gain as an asset, as buying. Often, as in buying real estate, the hidden potentialities can be developed, play a considerable role in this in this bargain. In a culture in which the marketing orientation prevails and in which material success is their standing value, there is little reason to decide that human love relations follow the same pattern of exchange which governs the commodity and the labor market. And that is why, who do soccer players go out with? Who do football players go out with?
Models.
Why models? Why does he go out with a regular girl? Because it's a commodity. It's a commodity. That's why football players and very rich men, they marry models. And the models marry them because exactly that. They are looking for someone rich and famous that can support them. The man is looking for a trophy, and for him, a trophy is a beautiful girl on his arm. And that's why football players go out with models, and women go out with rich businessmen or football players. How much authenticity, how much real love, how much can they really express themselves? How can they be themselves in that kind of a relationship? That is very questionable. Because as long as I'm looking for an asset, what the person really is not important. And that's why many times these kind of relationships don't last for long. The third error, leading to the assumption that there is nothing to be learned about love, lies in the confusion between the initial experience of falling in love and the permanent state of being in love, or as we might better say, standing in love. If two people have been strangers, as all of us are, suddenly let the wall between them break down and feel close, feel one. This moment of oneness is one of the most exhilarating, most exciting experiences in life. It is all the more wonderful and miraculous for persons who have been shut off, isolated without love. And excuse me if I say this, but boys who have been stuck in yeshiva only among boys for 2, 3, 5 years, when they suddenly go out with a girl, then wow, they've somehow come out of their male prison. This miracle of sudden intimacy is often facilitated if it is combined with or initiated by sexual tension and consummation. This is not for religious boys, obviously. However, this type of love is by very nature not lasting. The two persons become well acquainted. Their intimacy loses more and more of its miraculous character until the antagonism, the disappointments, the mutual boredom kill whatever is left of the initial excitement. Yet in the beginning, they do not know all this. In fact, they take the intensity of the infatuation, this being crazy about each other, for proof of the intensity of their love, which, while it only may prove the degree of their preceding loneliness. So we have fallen crazily in love, and we are 100% sure that this is the woman that is completely right for me. But that is the beginning, the falling in love, or another word for it, infatuation. How do we remain completely in love? Now, a person cannot remain at this level of intensity of the beginning of falling of love for the rest of his life. It never, ever is there. When I say I'm talking about someone that's completely consummated by this love, as we sometimes can read in love songs, or have to look for outside love songs, in Shir Shirim, that the person is love sick, that he can't do anything. He's not eating and he's not sleeping and he's not functioning, he's not concentrating on his learning, he's not getting hit because he is crazily in love. Now, this is something very, very beautiful. There's something very, very intense. There's something very, very strong, but it never will last. The person cannot remain at that peak for a long period. When I say long period, it can be a few months, 6 months, maybe a bit more, but not much more. Again, sorry, skip the problem with the pages. Rega. This attitude that nothing is easier than love has continued to be the prevalent idea about love in spite of the overwhelming evidence to the contrary. There is hardly any activity, any enterprise, which has started with such tremendous hopes and expectations, yet which fails so regularly as love. Meaning, if we look at the percentage of failure, then I wouldn't go into this endeavor. I wouldn't put money on it. If this were the case with any other activity, people would be eager to know the reasons for the failure and to learn how one could do better. Or they would give up the activity. Since the latter is impossible in the case of love, there seems to be only one adequate way to overcome the failure of love: to examine the reasons for this failure and to proceed to study the meaning of love. The first step to take is to become aware that love is an art, just as living is an art. If we want to learn how to love, we must proceed in the same way we have to proceed if we want to learn any other art, say music, painting, carpentry, or the art of medicine and engineering. What are the necessary steps in learning any art? The process of learning an art can divide a community into two parts. One, the mastery of the theory, the other, the mastery of practice. If you want to learn the art of medicine, I must first know the facts about the human body and about various diseases. When I have all this theoretical knowledge, I'm no means competent in the art of medicine. I should become a master in this art only after a great deal of practice, until eventually the results of my theoretical knowledge and the results of my practice are blended into one, my intuition, the essence of the mastery of any art. But aside from learning the theory and practice, the third factor is to become master of any art. The mastery of art must be met of ultimate concern. There must be nothing else in the world more important than the art. This holds true for music, for medicine, for carpentry, and for love. And maybe here lies the answer to the question of why people in our culture try so rarely to learn this art, in spite of the obvious failures, in spite of the deep-seated craving for love. Almost everything else is considered to be more important than love. Success, prestige, money, power, almost all our energy is used for the learning of how to achieve these aims, and almost none to learn the art of loving. Could it be that only these things are considered worthy of being learned with which one can earn money or prestige, and the love which only profits the soul, but is profitless in the modern sense, is a luxury of no right to spend much energy on? However, this may be the following discussion will treat the art of loving in the sense of the foregoing divisions. First, I should discuss the theory of love. This will comprise a greater part of the book. And secondly, I should discuss the practice of love. Little said can be said about this practice as in any other field. So, I think the most important thing about this introduction to his book is impressing upon ourselves how important it is to learn about love. Now, where do we learn from? And so what we're going to be able to do, we're going to learn a Jewish sources, because there are many, many sources to learn from love, and not all of them are kosher. Not all of them are, firstly, good for us, maybe good for other societies, maybe good for other religions, but not for us. And but the most important thing about what we're doing is what's happening here in the shiur. Understanding the importance of the imperative importance of learning of how to be a loving person. And that is what he's going to speak about in the beginning. And next time we'll go into that issue of how can I be a loving person, in order, meaning we've only studied now, we've only learned now, we've only read now about the importance of learning about love, how to do it, what is love, how can I be a loving person, how can I implement it in my life, that we will speak about later. Different shoe, okay?
Rav.
Yeah,
Wait,
I hear you. I think you have two phones on.
Yeah, sorry. Rav, so if we've now got this idea that love isn't about just happening upon it or falling in love. It's an art. It's a skill that you have to practice. So then when you meet somebody, or if you set up with somebody, is it then so if it does just happen that you meet somebody or you get set up by a friend, then is that then just a matter of implementing the skills you've learned and then causing yourself to fall in love, or it's not actually falling in love anymore? It's like a different thing altogether.
No, I think that once you know the skills that you need to have in order to be a person in a loving relationship, then you have, I think that you have, in most cases, everything that you need in order to be in that loving relationship. But there's one other thing that no one in the world knows the trick or knows the formula, and that is what combines two people's hearts. Meaning, how can it be that a person walks into the room, sees a woman, or she sees a man, and they click at that moment? And this is real things that happen. Now, that's one thing. They click at that moment and they know, okay, that's my husband or that's my wife. No one knows what is this little spark that causes a man and a woman to fall in love. What we are speaking about is not that spark, because that no one can say how it works. Once you have fallen in love, there are so many people that do not know how to maintain that love, how to remain in a loving relationship. And it is much, much more important. That's what he's saying. We think that the problem is the object. How am I going to find this beautiful girl? That's not the problem. That's not the main issue. The main issue is that if you are a loving person, because you have formulated into yourself the skills of what it means to be a loving person, you'll find that person. You'll find that person. The problem is not finding the person. The problem is being a loving person and maintaining it. Now, it's true, we have to find the loving person. It doesn't mean that you don't need to find that person, but that's not the main issue. The main issue is being a loving person.
Thank you, Rav.
Okay. Guys, next week is Shavuot, 1 minute. Why don't we do a shiur on Shavuot? Who's in yeshiva?
Yeah, I'm keen. We all are, except we all are.
Definitely.
I'm not.
So come.
I'll see if I can get permission. I'll see what I can do.
What do you say about shiur? And I'm already booked for most shiurim on Shavuot afternoon.
Yeah, that could be good.
God, please be in touch with me. Maybe I'll be able to have it in my house in Alon Shvut. Or we do it in Yeshiva, I don't know, or maybe in the base midrash of the new shul. Be in touch with me, Erev, write to me, WhatsApp me, Erev Shavuot, and let you know. We make a shiur on Shavuot. That will be the shiur for next week.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Rav Rafi.
So,
Thank you, Rav.
Bye,
Rav.
Chag Sameach.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom,
Shalom.
Chag Sameach.
Thanks so much.
Shabbat shalom.